Welcome back to our DNA. I think we're at episode 9
Well, wow.
officially, and we have a big day. We have a big guest. So, of course, you have me, Brandon Duplessis, Philip Price, and David Medina, and our special guest, Noah Urrutia. Uh, David, you want to do the intro to our special guest?
Yeah, so this is our editor and a personal friend of mine, Noah. He helps with my business, and he does a little bit of everything. He's a multi-talented tool over here. So
Nice.
Noah, you can tell about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm grew up in Palm Desert, California, out of the Coachella Valley. Currently reside in India right now. I am a co-host with Creative Collective with David, as some of you may know,
Yeah.
and I've been into music for quite a while, about like since 21, so about almost 5 years. I've been huge into sports most of my life. Football, I played most of my life before music went into my path. I I'm Korean and white, yeah, I'm just looking forward to hearing your guys' insight for some of the questions that I have for you today.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us, Noah. Thank you for all your work, too, that you've been doing. And it's definitely been a pleasure knowing David, working with him, and hearing all the good things about you as well.
Thank you. I'm glad to have a helping hand in it.
Of course. I am curious. So football, what'd you play? What position?
So, did you want to take a guess?
Man, well, I can't really see you physically, so like I can see your head, but part of me thinks like something on defense. That's like my first, like a safety. I don't know. I don't really know football, to be honest. So I'd be.
So you're partially right. When I play
Okay.
defense, I would play safety, but my main
Okay.
position would be receiver.
Nice.
That's what I would have thought. Yes.
Hey, there you go. And then I also
Yeah,
played a good amount of
that's
quarterbacks, but yeah, mainly receiver though.
There you go. How tall are you?
6 foot.
Okay, there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That helps.
I know you mentioned you played basketball a good amount, Brandon. So
Yeah.
there you go.
6'6". I did want to play football and be a tight end. That was kind of like my other sport I wanted to do. But when I was in high school, when you were good at one sport, you played that sport. Like they didn't talk to me about crossing over and playing another sport. It was like, and I was 6'6" at 12, and I was already on varsity as I went into my freshman year. So it was like,
wow.
I wasn't thinking of playing football and, in my mind, breaking a bone or something.
Yeah, that's fair, because you don't really hear that really, like, I just thought about this. You don't really hear that much in like high school coaches nowadays, where they like try to influence you to play other sports if you're good at something. So it's like,
Right.
It's interesting to consider, but that's what's up though.
Yeah, cool. Dope. So now, as far as questions, we love having you on. I'm excited. This is my favorite part of what we're doing, is answering people's questions, getting out there, and just, I guess interacting with our audience, right? And the people that we have. And I look forward to having more guests, but you're our first and our very special first guest. So thank you for joining us again.
Of course, man. Thank you guys for having me. It's my pleasure. But yeah, I'll start with my first question I got for you guys for the night. Any advice that you would give someone like me who's looking to rent a studio/room to live in for one person? I'm aiming to move out to the Valley this spring, February, or to like early spring this next year. And I'm just curious of like what you would consider as far as looking at options would go.
That's a good one.
Well, my first question is like, this is always going to be my first question, kind of like why you're moving out to the Valley, what your motivation is, kind of why you're looking to make the move.
Yeah, so first of all, most of my friends are out in the Valley, so that's pretty much where my friend group is.
Right.
And then I host a lot of my events. I'm going to put David back in here real quick. I host the events. I do a lot of the business stuff I like doing out there. A lot of my connections are more towards LA, like Southeast, like West LA, everywhere, and the Valley especially. I've built so many like strong relationships with people I've known in the Valley for like the last handful of years since COVID. So, and plus I like the Valley. It's fun. You know, it's a good place for someone as young as me to like start out in, I feel like, and, you know, build my life path going on there. And I feel like that's what I got going for me for the most part, for sure, as of now.
Well, it's good. And you already have a community out there that you've been building, right? Your friends are already out there. You had good connections. The line of work that you're in, you know, is kind of pushing you more towards that area. So those are all, you know,
that's
good
where
things.
you're going to be. Ain't that the hub of it? Entertainment, music, everything is out that
It
way.
is. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Now
So
I could talk to my son. He's into that music thing, and he lives in Newport, and I can see if he knows anybody that, because he knows people that have a studio. So that'd be the first person I would call. His name is Tyler. So maybe after the podcast, I'll get your number or something, and maybe have my son talk to you and see if he knows anybody's got any studios out there. You know, because
Cool.
he helped. You ever heard of a guy named Blanco Brown?
Blanco Brown?
Yeah, he's a black country singer. Blew up about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, somewhere in there. And Tyler helped him get hooked up.
Nice.
Through,
That's pretty cool.
Sony.
him up right now.
He's doing real well for him. He did a song with Tim McGraw, and he's done some stuff. Look him up after we get off.
Yeah, I'm looking him up right
Blanco
now.
Brown.
Cedar Walls and Whiskey, Blanco
Nice.
Brown.
Yeah, he's doing really well for himself. He tours, and he must be doing pretty good. He got 40 cars now, so.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what's up.
he looks good. I don't know, you can't probably like see it, but there, you know.
Yeah, Blanco Brown. He had
Yeah.
a big song, and everybody was doing the dance. I forgot what it was called.
The Get Up, maybe.
Get up? What is Get Up? What is it?
The Get Up. The Get Up.
Get Up.
He might have to be one of our next guests in the future.
Oh yeah. Blanco. He lives in Nashville because he's in that country scene.
That makes sense.
Right on.
But that's cool, though. I mean, I'm grateful to any help I'm given, so I appreciate that for sure, Philip.
Hey,
So
that's how it works.
You want to live in the studio is what you're hoping for?
No, renting something like a 1-bedroom or a bedroom
near
in the
studio or
somewhere.
something.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like around those lines. I'm open to pretty much anything, but yeah, for the time being at least, until me and David figure something out, because that's been our long-term goals to move in together again.
Have something.
Yeah.
You're muted, David.
Both of you.
What was the question originally? I didn't hear it because I got kicked out.
It was I was just asking about what I would look out for as far as finding like a room or a studio or a space to rent in the meantime. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things because obviously I'm in the Valley. I know David is. There are, I don't know what your guys' plans are as far as moving in together one day, but there are short-term rentals like where you can do it month to month or 3 months, 6 months, those types of things. It's always good to make sure like you connect or vibe with the person you would be renting from, because nothing's worse than renting a room from somebody that you just you dread showing up there every day, right?
Yeah.
Like the space, the energy. So, you know, and find something that's affordable, you know, that's not lavish. You know, you guys are young, you can save money, you know, and so it's hard because you need to do all your research, right? You do your research, you look at where you're going to live. You got to consider not only the price of where you're living, but also the location. Because if you find somewhere and say, you know, I'm just using Burbank as an example, but you're trying to drive to Santa Monica every day or South Bay, even though the rent's cheap in Burbank, you're spending an hour and a half driving and 2 hours driving. That's a lot of gas money. Right. So,
you got to think about all that stuff, because if the studio, you got to make sure it's close to the studio, because LA is not, you don't want to go across town.
Close to where you really want to be. Because if it's not, you may be saving money, but you're really not, because you're losing a lot of time. Gas is money, you know, all the above. So sometimes it's worth it to spend a little bit more to be in the area you want to be in. especially being a young guy, single. I'm assuming you're single.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something don't rush into, and I would start looking now, kind of thing. Because if
Oh
you're
yeah,
thinking,
and then put your bearings on where you want to be, your first choice, second choice, and lock into an area is what areas you want to live in.
Okay.
When you suggest that, figure out where you want to live, and then do some research on that.
yeah, what's
Okay.
important to you location wise? Location, location, location. That's so
Yep.
important.
Okay.
I
So
And
don't.
it's so expensive in LA though, and for anything that's because I'm in Las Vegas, so it's a lot cheaper here.
That's true. It's really expensive over here. Our average is what, like 1,200, I think, for like a one bedroom, probably
Maybe
more
a
on it.
studio. Yeah, a studio maybe is 1,200.
Yeah.
yeah, crazy.
One bedrooms are easily up to 2,000 or more. Two
Depending on
bedrooms.
the location, right?
Yep,
Depending on the
location.
location.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna
um,
move out into West Hills area, or maybe more Canoga eventually. And I at that point we'll probably be moving in together, me and Noah, since I'm gonna take your guys' advice and wait a little bit longer, save up longer, and make sure I have everything ready, or even wait for everything to
Patience.
crash so we can do a cheaper deal.
yeah, do it
Well,
big,
the
do it right.
Japanese have a saying: measure twice, cut once.
Yeah,
And if you look at their philosophy works because they're very patient people. And as a younger man, I was not very patient. I've learned patience as I got older, but it's wonderful to give advice now. When I was young, I wouldn't live in that. I was
wouldn't
in
take
a
it.
hurry to get to everywhere. It's funny how that works. My kids, I was trying to give my son that advice, and he reminds me of myself so much. And he's 37, and he says, "Dad, you sound kind of crazy because you've always been on the run." I said, "Well, I just want you to slow down and don't move as fast as I
Yeah.
did." It's funny how that works, man.
Hey, you could
guys are
learn from
laughing now,
people's.
but one day you go get there and you'll go, "Okay, I wish I
You
had
could learn
moved a
from
little
people's
slower."
mistakes.
That's
You can
funny.
learn or learn from people's successes, right? Like you can learn from a lot. It does, And I've definitely been someone who's learned from mistakes, and I've been on the run myself, let's say. So, but I've also got to the point where I have been because I did listen to those who were successful when I did listen, right?
Yep.
So,
The best gift you could give yourself um, is to listen. A lot of knowledge is passed through your ears, but you got to hear it.
That's a good one.
You got to hear it though, because if you just let it go over your head, it has no value.
Yeah. It's as if
But
like
if
it
you
never
listen
happened.
and just absorb it and listen to it and decide if it makes sense for you, and then how you would go after it.
Gotcha.
All those old sayings they say patient versus a bird, all this stuff the older people used to say to me. It's funny how as you get older down the road, it's the early bird gets the worm. Da, 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 da. They used to tell you all those sayings, and as a
it
kid, I didn't
works,
think that was real. I know more than they do, even though they live longer.
right?
I thought I was smarter than them. Then you wake up one day. What's that saying? The older I get, the smarter my parents get.
Mhm.
It's a true statement
True. Start understanding it more.
because you understand it absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
definitely be patient, Noah. No rush if you don't have to rush a move. And if something feels like it's rushed, it may not be the right move to make.
Yeah. That's understandable. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
location is basically like one of the biggies for y'all then, in a nutshell.
I would
Well,
say
don't
so.
make the decision just strictly on price because if you save in $200, but yet the studio's way over here and it's going to cost you $200 in gas in a month, that ain't a convenience. That's especially in LA when you get on
It's
that
an
freeway. I don't care
inconvenience.
what time of day it is. You
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
to
It's not
you got to
worth
think
it.
about that if you're going back to LA. I used to be at my friend's house, and our dinner reservations was at 7, and we're out in Malibu, and he says, "Oh, we got to leave now. And it's 4:30." I'm going, "It's 4 o'clock. We're gonna leave. Our dinner reservations at 7." He said, "Phil, if we don't leave now, we won't make the reservation.
You won't make it.
It's crazy.
If we don't leave now." And I go, "Are you kidding me?" He go, "Yeah, we have to leave now." And it's, when you don't live there, you're like, "Excuse me, we're gonna leave now at 4 o'clock and the dinner reservation at 7." You look on the map. I mean, we're from Malibu to Hollywood. It don't seem that far. It isn't, but
What, 15 miles, 12 miles?
Yeah.
I know. I just thought that was crazy, but once we got on the freeway, I said, "Okay, I get it now." Yeah.
I moved when I moved out from Moore Park into the valley. Moore Park is quiet, it's its own small little city. It's outside of LA, it's in Ventura County. And I was moving into the valley for the first time. I'd never moved there before. It was my first experience. And I was working in Santa Monica. So I picked a location that was right off the freeway of the 405. And without any traffic, it was about 15 minutes away. Sometimes 13 minutes if I was really flying, So it was close. But if I didn't leave my house before 6 o'clock in the morning, it would take me like 45 minutes to an hour to get to work. And then when I left and I came back home, it would take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half easily to get back. And I thought I was being smart. I was like, "Oh, I'm moving right off the freeway. It's a straight shot, 15 minutes away." Yeah, I dreaded that drive every day.
Damn, that sounds exhausting.
It is, especially when you're sitting in a car. Huh?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Now they got Teslas. They can drive themselves, I had to stay alert.
Yeah, well, we've heard about stories of that, so I'm not ready to go there yet.
Yeah, I don't trust it.
All around Vegas, they have these cars that are carless, and you can get in San Francisco. They got them to where you can. Do they have them in LA? Where the driverless cars, and they pick you up and take you where you want to go.
Not that I know of. I don't know, David. Have you seen any of that?
I haven't seen any yet. I've seen them on news, but that's it.
Yeah, that's about it.
They have them here in Vegas. You can go anywhere. You call and they pick you up and take you where you want to go.
Yeah,
well,
it's like Uber.
Yeah.
Just without a person.
That's kind of a trip. I'm not gonna lie.
Going down the streets is kind of weird because there's nobody in the car. Like if they're going to pick somebody up, did it turn right?
Damn.
They. It's funny how art imitates life, because they told us in the 70s and the 60s that these things were going to be available, like talking watches and stuff. This is in the 60s, and we're looking at it like this is not even real.
Futuristic.
It was a cartoon. It was a cartoon called The Jetsons.
The Jetsons.
So and they were trying to give you an idea of what the future was going to look like. It's amazing when I look back, and they always said art imitates life. All the things that are real now that they warned us about back then. And they said Big Brother would be watching you and know everything about you.
Big Brother.
Have you guys ever been on your phone and say, "I'm thinking about going look at a Corvette"? Ain't it funny? You said it to your friends, but all of a sudden on your timeline,
100%,
on Facebook or anything,
it's on here.
All these Corvettes pop up. You go, "Excuse me, how do you know?" They're listening to us.
Yeah.
Algorithms. They're there.
Yeah.
A friend who is a Secret Service, and we were in Marina del Rey, and he says, "You would if he was with Rumfield, who was the Secretary of Defense." And he said, "Well, okay, I'll come join you guys after I put Rumfield down for the night and come talk to you." He said, "If you knew what I know, you'd never want to do anything wrong."
That's wild.
He says he wouldn't elaborate any further than that. He says, "But they know everything." I says, "Well, how did?" He said, "Well, I'll give you one example. You have a navigation in your car." I go, "Yeah." I said, "But I don't use it that much." He says, "If we subpoena you and we're after you, They can tell every place you have ever been because you have navigation in your car.
Location.
Wow.
Yeah. Follows every move. Google.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then-
Too much
Gotta
power.
worry
Even
about
if you don't
that.
use
And
it,
Terminator.
even if you don't use it, he said, we can, if we subpoena and get the information off that car, we're going to know every place you ever been.
That's insane.
So if they're looking for you for a crime that's over here, they're going to be able to tell if you were over there.
Wow.
There was a guy killed his wife in San Jose, big time executive. He swore he was in San Bruno, California at a meeting. They subpoenaed his phone records and his car, and they proved that his car was parked around the corner with his wife.
It wasn't me.
Wow.
Jesus, that's scary.
But that's the truth.
That's
The
where
time
we're
we
at.
live in now, you got to be really cautious.
Yeah.
You know, if you live your life right, it is no big deal. But if you are somebody that's living on the edge, that's something you got to really consider. Because if you look at most of these people, never get away with it now.
Yeah, because of all the
Back in
technology.
the 60s and 70s, they didn't have all this technology.
Yeah.
They just arrested a guy that's 88 years old, 82 years old, that he killed somebody 50 years ago because they still had DNA on him.
Wow.
And 10 years
Well, at
ago,
least
they
they got
said
him.
DNA wasn't that good.
That's a long time coming.
He
Yeah.
was 82 when they arrested him. It was a 50-year-old crime.
Wow.
But they saved his DNA.
So he was like 30-some when he actually committed it.
Yep.
Jesus.
Can't get away with those 50-year crimes.
And now he's going to spend his last years on this earth in jail.
Yeah.
Man.
Because he once the police showed up, he's 82, he's old, he admitted that it was him. Because even though they had DNA, because they put it all
They
together.
figured it out.
DNA stuff is
Don't do crime, everybody.
Yeah.
It's not worth- they
I
will
lived
find you.
72 years, and let me tell you, it's better to do it the right way than the wrong way.
That's right.
Hear
Quick
that.
money
Yeah.
is not always the best money.
That's why you don't leave your DNA everywhere. You just watch our DNA instead.
Our DNA. That's
Yeah,
right.
I like that.
That's
I like
That was
that.
a good one. That was a good one.
There you go.
All right. I want to move on to our next question I got for y'all. What are your thoughts on credit cards and any advice you give that to me and any specific companies you guys recommend at all, if any?
Okay.
I know credit pretty well because we deal with it all the time. You need the credit cards to run your scores up. Even if you buy a car and you do all that stuff, without credit cards, you can't get. The credit card companies have so much influence on the United States.
Yeah.
You can't raise your credit scores without credit cards. You have to, but you got to keep it. If you get a $2,000 credit card, you got to keep it that you only charge $300.
Okay.
Because you got to. I'll give you the simple analogy I've always told people. When I didn't need money, when I was a multimillionaire, every bank was trying to loan me money. When I needed money, nobody wanted to loan me money. You have to look on paper that you don't need the money.
Okay.
So the first thing that blocks you from getting any kind of loans or any kind of business loans is if you max out your credit cards. Because that means you've been living off of them.
Gotcha.
So I would say you definitely have to have them.
Keep your balance low.
Like everything in life, you got to have control over. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
100%.
The less you use it and then pay it off. Because credit cards, if you charge $3,000 on it, if you pay the minimum payment, it'll take you 30 years to pay it off. And look for cards that say 0% interest.
Okay. 0%.
Especially if
Okay.
your scores over 700 credits.
That's smart.
I'm gonna write that
Sometimes you have
down.
to build your credit. You have to do things to get there. Depending on where you're at in life, if you can start off with a 0% credit card, great.
But if you can't, you got to get the credit card anyway.
Get the credit cards anyways.
Yes.
You want to have more than one. Technically,
Yes.
you want to build your credit.
Okay.
But you don't want to go crazy and get like 10 at one time, right? Get them spread out. But like Philip said, you want to keep them low. The balance is low. Keeping your balance low is one of the biggest determining factors on the score that you have. Like
Yes.
when people are trying to buy a house, I'll look at their credit score. I'll see their credit cards are like 90%, 80% maxed out, and their credit score might be 690. And we'll tell them, like, hey, pay off these cards down to a 30% balance, and your
And it
score
jumps up.
will go from 690 to 730.
Oh,
And
wow.
Then you'll
higher than
qualify
that,
for this.
if they got high credit cards, it'll go up to 7,
Yeah,
8,
depending
7,
on how high they are.
75.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So credit could be easily had and easily lost. Okay.
Amen.
So, if your credit is messed up for a little bit, don't worry. You can get it back real quick. You just have to do it in the right steps. So keeping your balance as low is really important. And it's smart to have a credit card too, because one thing credit cards will offer you is points and miles and
Right.
different things that you can use. So if you're really smart with it, instead of paying your bill with your debit card, you'll pay it with your credit card and just pay
Right.
your
And then pay it off. Yes, absolutely.
So you're building this free credit that you get and your free points and all that stuff. The problem is if you can't pay it with your debit card, don't start using your credit card.
That's where you get in trouble.
That's
where
when you get in
everybody
trouble.
gets in trouble.
For sure.
Because now you're like, oh man, I'll just use my credit card. Well, be careful with that because it adds up, and then that's going to really, start to eat away at your score.
Gotcha.
Yep.
What are, if you don't mind me asking real quick, what are some of the things you recommend using credit cards for specifically?
Well, for business expenses, like if you go to dinner or lunch, I would use my credit card. So you got a tracking. You can get it with your debit card, but I just did back in the day. I did it off my credit card.
And actually, that's one thing I was going to mention.
All that stuff, yeah.
Is if you can open up your own business bank account, they'll give you a business credit card.
Yes.
Now, when you are going to lunch and you're doing things, you can filter it all through the business credit card. So it's under that business account, right? So that's one. If you can do that, set it up. That will itemize things for you. Will keep it all under the business, and it will give you more of your tax write-offs on that area. And it's
Okay.
But if you guys are doing the independent business, you should have an LLC. Like you guys are doing these music things, you should have an LLC. It only costs about $800 to start it. It's a perfect way. I'll give you a perfect analogy. If you pay your fair share of taxes and you make $1 million a year, and you pay, like in California, 40% of that going to the government, so you only get 6. How can people grow their wealth my net worth at one time was 80 mil. From my businesses, I probably made 55 mil. So how do you get to 80 mil if you pay your taxes?
Right on.
You can't. You can't.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, you can't. And that's the luxury of a business owner. And that's why business runs this whole thing. That's, like Warren Buffett says, he pays less tax than his secretary did.
Wow.
And he's one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah.
He said that's not fair. He says when the taxes on rich were, he was with his partner Charlie. He says, in so and so year when I was paying 35, the corporation was paying 35% taxes. How much money did we make? He said the same. Because people that are really talented and know how to make money, they set their goals and they make that same amount of money no matter what. And that was his point.
Yeah. So if you guys
but you should start an LLC.
Or open up a bank account, you could technically open
under
up
the
more than
business
one.
name.
Yep.
But you got to have all your business stuff in order. LLC.
I used.
number.
I can tell you right now who I used to set me up.
Yeah, we technically have an LLC actually set up. It's we don't have the business bank account, but we were thinking about switching over to a partnership. because somebody told us that it might be cheaper like that, and for what we're doing.
No, partnerships, you pay two separate taxes.
Oh.
LLC, run everything through.
Oh, okay.
So the
Yeah.
LLC would be the best option.
Right. Because if you go with
Gotcha.
a corporation, you got to pay personal taxes plus you got to pay corporate taxes.
Oh, that's right. You
Mm.
get taxed as two separate entities. Yeah.
Because then they're separate. Whereas as an LLC, you run everything through that LLC.
That's right.
All right, I guess we're
Okay.
staying as an LLC.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Philip.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, anything on business, I mean, I've been blessed to, for the majority of my life, that's what I did. And I had 3 dealerships, 2 Ford, and I had a Toyota store for
Nice.
23 years. So, yeah.
Nice.
So but that's, if you really think about it, if a guy starts out and he starts his business, how could he grow his wealth to where and they let you do it, and they know you do it, as long as you're doing the right things with the money. Now, if you ain't paying no taxes and hoarding all the money, they can get after you.
They're going to get after you.
Mm-hmm.
So when I set up my LLC, and this is a company that I've always kind of reached out to with questions, because I literally talked to them yesterday for it, was Nevada Corporate Headquarters Incorporated. Nevada Corporate Headquarters. I hit them up.
So what did you set your corporation up at,
though? Which they helped me with. I think it was Wyoming.
Wyoming, yeah. So you want to get it in your corporation, and because you can set your corporation anywhere, like states like Nevada, where you don't pay no sales tax.
So they set me up. I told them what type of businesses, what I was doing, how I was doing it, and they hooked me up. So, that's one way you could do it, is work with somebody that knows what they're doing and can help you structure the way you need it done. And that way it's done, like Philip said, it's done the right way, right? Because you try to do it on your own and you kind of fall behind or make some mistakes, they might come at you. But if you have someone who knows what they're doing and they set you up the right way, that may be a difference. And like going back to the credit card thing, when you set up your bank account, usually it makes it real easy for you to get a credit card through them. And then same idea, though, these kind of companies like the Nevada Corporation, they actually can help you build your company credit as well. Because there's difference between having your company credit versus your personal credit.
Yes. And you need to build business credit along with personal credit.
Business
you need
credit.
to do both. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. Did not know this.
We, Brandon and I both have been in the business world a little longer than you guys. That's why what I want to do, I've been blessed to experience a lot of wonderful things in this life. Share the knowledge. As a friend told me one day, and we were talking about business, and he said, "Phil, can you do me a favor?" And I go, "Yeah, sure, man." He says, "Leave it. Don't take it with you. Share it. Don't take it with you." Because if you keep it to yourself, and there's so many things you do, experience is a wonderful teacher, like you said, and you guys are young. So don't bump your head in the wall because you don't ask. Ask. Yeah. If you got a question, Brandon's available, I'm available. We will talk you through all the things we've experienced, and the only thing we got different is experience.
Goes a long way.
We've lived longer.
That's it.
And and that's why, sometimes my kids get mad at me because I want them to do it a certain way, and they don't want to do it that way because they think they're smarter than me. And I have to remind them, when we flew around in that private jet that I own, and we lived in that 7,500 square foot house that you were raised in, I did some things right. I did some things right.
Didn't mind listening then.
But they're like me. They're smart. I was stubborn when I was younger. And the thing I would share with any young person, use your ears more than your mouth. Be a better listener than a talker. That's my advice as an OG now.
I like
tell
that.
you, you're a better listener than a talker because look at the people that run the world. They're very good listeners.
Mm.
And they work that against you too because people tell you how to sell them. People tell you how to what they're thinking, and you can maneuver that if you hear what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense?
I was. That's funny you mentioned that because I remember I put David onto this one book. It's called How to Influence Others and Win Friends or something like that.
Yeah, how do I
Yeah,
influence?
that's something Brandon and I talk about a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll talk about like that. I always remember the one chapter where the guy was. I think it was like Charles Schwab. He was like really. He was so successful the way he was because he was great at remembering names.
Yeah,
And
Yes.
I'm just like,
Yes.
wow, that's just all listening. And I'm just like, wow.
yeah, it's true.
And if you
Listening.
look at the sharpest business people, they usually sit back. They want you to explain what you're talking about, and then they come up with a conclusion and an answer. And I had to learn that when I first bought my first dealership. I'm this hyper, over aggressive person, right? And I was talking to the guy, his name was DM Coleman from Ford Motor Company. He says, I'm going to give you some advice that's going to make you a multimillionaire. So, like a dummy yummy, I'm excited. I'm thinking he's going to tell me how the sea parted, how the world is created. I'm thinking it's going to be an
This is gold.
amazing
This is what
idea.
you've been waiting your whole life for. Yeah.
A whole life for life.
Good.
You know what he
Thank you
said to me?
for.
You know what he said to me? No matter what comes before you, I want you to say this and do this every time. You know, John, it sounds like a great idea. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you.
That's it.
And let me tell you, that made me millions of dollars because the problem was I was so hyper. Somebody would come with a great idea and I'd go, oh, yeah, let's do it. That sounds great. And then we get into it and you go, oh, shit, that was a dumb idea. I shouldn't have done that.
How'd I get here?
If you think about it overnight, you'll look at the pros and the cons. I can't tell you how much money I saved me doing it that way. And I would recommend it for you guys too. You know, that's not, whether it's buying a house, a car, you know, it sounds like a great deal. The dealership don't want you to leave. When I owned the dealership, I didn't want you to leave because people make better choices when they leave.
Yeah, true.
Okay. We wanted you to stay and make that decision now.
You want them to
And
sign
look
right
at the
then and
smartest
there.
people. Yeah, look at the smartest people that say, you know, sounds like a good deal, Phil. Let me think about it tonight and I'll call you tomorrow. That was the worst thing we wanted to hear. We didn't want to hear that.
But those are what the smart people do. They don't, like I was saying about renting, if it feels too quick or too pressured, probably just shouldn't do it. Take your time.
Mm-hmm.
With the credit cards too, I was going to say, just kind of like a side tip is monitor your credit too. Like if you have
Yes, sign up with Experian or yes.
Experian, Nerd Wallet, whatever, like I use, and just make sure it's, you know, on track, and it helps you make sure you realize where you're at too, and then they will give you credit card suggestions, all kinds of different things like that.
Yes,
Okay.
and they'll help you with the credit. But this one guy was talking to a young guy, and he was saying, he said, "Do you monitor your credit?" And he says, "No." He said, "So you don't have good credit." That's what he said to the kid. He was an older guy. He said, "So you don't have good credit," because people that have great credit,
They want to look at
shit
that.
all the time. Because credit is, you can borrow. I borrowed $20 million from Wells Fargo Bank.
Wow.
Mm.
But you got to have the credit and you got to have the assets.
Mm-hmm.
And credit is the first thing they look at.
So build it up. Build it
Gotcha.
up. Build it up.
Gotcha. Definitely
All
wrote all those points you shared with me down for sure on my notes. So thank you. I
course.
appreciate y'all.
Awesome.
And then the
But
one
that's
last
what
question.
this,
What's up?
okay, I want to answer your
Oh, sorry.
question.
All right. This last question I had is kind of, I guess, more of a fun one, like more of a debate one. But I was curious. Like I've been all over this one. What are you guys' thoughts on the Luigi Mangione case with the healthcare?
Ooh.
Ooh, that's,
Yeah.
well, you know,
It's kind of,
it's really kind of opened up a sword, didn't it? Like a scab wound.
That's what I'm thinking. It's a double-ended sword. Yeah.
Well, I'm with United through Medicare, United Healthcare, and I can just tell you, when you go to your doctors and you show them your card, all the doctors, all of my dentists, because my dental was through here and everything, they say, "Oh, United Healthcare, they don't pay. We don't like using them, Phil." I mean, the
Damn.
doctors tell you that. I mean, I mean, I didn't know the difference between United Healthcare because there's a million health Medicare things you can use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now, what it is, all the people that's been screwed over by this company,
From the insurance companies. Yep.
they stole $9 billion from the United States government, and the congressmen don't want to go after them for the $9 billion they stole
It's ridiculous.
on Medicare. On Medicare.
But they went after that 80-year-old real quick that murdered 50 years ago. And like, I just signed up for healthcare insurance with my new company. It's that season, right? And I'm sitting there looking at the cost on the monthly basis. And then I'm understanding like the maximum out of pocket and the different fees that you pay as you go through things, right? And so I'm like, let me call some of these dentists and vision places that I like to go to that I normally kind of pay out of pocket and just deal with it myself. And let me see if they take this insurance. One, most of them don't want to even take it. Two, the ones that did take it, they're like, what they started doing is setting up their own internal type insurance or program. So they didn't even have to worry about dealing with the insurance companies because that's how screwed they get by them. So
Wow.
they were like, you know what? We have a good program here. You just pay this, this, and this. You get multiple cleanings and all. I was like, I'm just gonna do that. I declined my,
If you
my
Nice.
my oldest son is paying for health insurance because his company don't provide it. This now back in the day, my dealership, my employees, I paid for all their health care for their family and everything. When I started my first dealership in 1989, it cost me for my whole dealership $6,500. By year 20, I couldn't cover the employees anymore. I mean, I could cover the employees, but I couldn't cover the family. They had to pay for it because it went up to where it was like 45,000 a month.
Damn.
40,000.
Yeah, to cover my whole family right now would be like almost $1,400.
My son pays 17. That's what he pays in San Diego.
And that's with my
$1,700.
company giving like $450 towards the payment.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's like $1,400 a month and praying that nobody gets hurt anyways, let alone,
Yeah.
And it's
For
like,
real.
but if someone doesn't get hurt, like someone got to get hurt this year. Somebody.
You say I'm paying $1,500.
Hey,
You sure
your
you
brother
didn't
did it.
stub your
Yeah,
toe?
who is it this year? Who's throwing the shortest stick? It's like, because so with this guy's case, it's a tough one because obviously I think of my son because this guy was like what was he? He was I know he was the speaker at his graduation. I think he was
He was valedictorian in his high
He's a very
school.
wealthy family too. His grandmother just died and left the family like some 40
resort
mil
or
30
something.
mil or something. She left
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So it's tough to like see a kid that's obviously not dumb. He's smart, but
Right.
who knows what kind of other issues he personally has, because that's always, we never really know the full story, right? Like everyone has their own, like my uncle told, everyone has their cross to bear, so it's like to see a young kid go that far to
Well, I think
murder
he was stuck
somebody.
on an idea though, Brandon. I think he's one of those what do you call them? People that kind of they see through the bullshit of life, and it frustrates them. As a young man, it did that to me, but I had to understand that life is a game. I had to understand that when you want things to be simpler and easier and better, but like I tell my kids, you got to play the game. I had to learn that you got to play the game, and I think he was just too much of a realist. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He saw the damage and harm. United Healthcare is the worst company. He went and shot and killed the worst company in the United States. Dentists and doctors have told me it's the worst insurance. They deny everything.
Oh wow.
They're, the next closest is they deny 20%, and United Healthcare denies at a rate of around 33%.
Jesus.
And then all the ex-employees came out and said it's a horrible company to work for. I mean, they're raising money for this kid to go get a lawyer. That's how much they hate United Healthcare.
Wow.
Oh
Is that
man.
cold? I ain't never
Yeah.
seen nothing like that.
Well, let me ask you, Noah, David, what are your guys' thoughts on it? You know, you're obviously a younger generation, just in general. Like, what's your first reaction to it?
David, you want to go first, or should I?
Go,
Sure, I'll
David.
go first. Honestly, I don't really have much to say about it. I mean, I know I've been seeing a lot of social media activity on it, mostly because a lot of people are our age and that I follow and stuff. And they're mostly just talking about how the guy's like attractive, and I think that's hilarious because it's like that's
Right.
really what you guys are talking about. While there's, some of them are talking about the more interesting topics, like what we're talking about now, like how it's raising awareness. Another topic I've seen a lot on Twitter, especially, is that he is, or X, is that he is like a martyr now for all
Yes.
these companies. And other than that, I mean, I don't really know too much. Like I said, I just glimpse upon it. This is the most I'm really hearing about the case now, just because I don't really pay attention to the news as much as possible. I try to avoid it, but you know.
What
Fair
about you?
enough.
So what do
Fair
you think,
enough.
Noah? What do you
I
think?
mean, okay. Look, I'm not gonna sit here and say murdering people is right. It's not.
No, it's
But
not right. Trust me on
yeah.
that. I don't agree with that.
Right. But I kind of get his motive though, where he's coming from, because like, yeah, I don't know if any of you have read his manifesto, but he was basically saying in a nutshell how like, oh, like, we have the highest like health, like most expensive healthcare in the world, and our life expectancy is like 42nd, da 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 da, and he comes from having like major back surgery, a bunch of medical claims going against him, um, you know, United Healthcare making billions off of people's deaths.
Billions.
So it's yeah, and then the owner doing insider trading and all that other sketchy stuff behind closed doors.
Mhm.
Um, it's just really odd. I really hope it's not a setup. And like in his manifesto, he says like, look, this is why I'm doing what I did. Here's the blueprint, pretty much. Here's the summary. I don't want to like give you guys the law enforcement like too much of a burden because I respect what you guys do, and yeah, that's pretty much it. He's just being like he's basically saying like it's just unfortunate I have to come at this as the most brutal and honest way,
Well,
So it's
And
like
you know what's messed up on the flip side of that? Let's say he did it without the brutality, and he was a whistleblower, and he gave out all this information to expose them for who they are.
mm,
He'd probably be on the news dead tomorrow. Like,
Yep.
oh,
yep.
young
oh
man
yes. Come on
fell
now.
off fell off into
He
the
wouldn't have he
subway,
wouldn't have made it a month.
found dead.
The CIA would pack him for sure.
Like
Oh
it,
yes.
like that's the fucked up part. It's like, you know, I believe we're in a modern day slavery, even as wealthy,
Yes.
as good as everything is, and as all, we can buy their phones and use their internet and work hard and buy one of their houses on the land that they own. It's like, but I firmly believe that we're still in modern day slavery, and it's hard because, go ahead.
Look at what it costs today. My first major check in 1972, and I thought I died and went to heaven, was $3,400. I could buy a house in a gorgeous neighborhood for $59,000. My payments would have been in 1972 probably about $500 a month. On $3,400, you could live a good life.
Hmm.
Gas was 25 cents a gallon. Bread was a quarter a loaf. Do you realize my kids, when I tell that story, they said, Dad, that's all you made? I said, let me explain to you how much money that was.
Yeah.
A lot.
You walked into a place with $100 bill,
Oh,
We had
you're filthy
520s.
rich.
Oh, dinner for two, $10.
You could be a burger flipper 60, 70 years ago and have a white picket fence and a wife and two kids at home.
My
Like,
uncles are older than me. They bought a house. My uncle bought one in Oakland Hills, in Oakland, California. We thought he was crazy in 1974. My Uncle Clarence spent $105,000 for that house because that was just absurd amount of money for a
a
house.
lot.
That
It was a
house
lot
is
of
worth. He still lives in that house. It's worth about $2.2 million. Now,
Wow.
how? Think about it at your age, as you guys being younger than me. I'm 72. You guys are way younger than me. How?
Mhm.
You know how kind of money you got to make to afford a decent house nowadays?
Yeah, it's
And
ridiculous.
here's the other messed up part. You could work in a factory. My uncles that I'm telling you about, they were eighth grade graduates. They didn't go
Mhm.
to finish high school,
they didn't go to Harvard.
but they were hard workers. They could go work at International Harvester, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, and buy these houses that I just told you that we thought was insane at $100,000. This payment is going to be $1,000 a month. We like, even though my aunt Pat and him both work, we're like, oh my God, $1,000 a month, blah 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 blah. I was only 20 years old. I'm like, $1,000 a month.
It's a
But
lot.
now that same house, if you go to buy his house, now he's done a lot to it and he's made it really nice. But that house cost you 2 million, so you put 500 down. Your payments
You're still close to 10 grand a month
10,000 a
almost.
month.
Easily. That's a lot
So
of
what do you
money.
have to make to buy that house from him? Think about that.
350
To
to
afford
500,000 easily.
Yeah.
it easily.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they worked in a factory. And my aunt sold her house in Oakland, and she got $1,000,001 for it. She paid 78,000 for it in
Let
1978.
alone to be able to cost insurance, the cost of the cost to maintain that house, like water bills, all that stuff is everything's just more expensive as you own something more expensive too. Let alone
Think
you
about
still got to pay your health care.
That's
Right.
facts.
Right.
when
So
in 1989, when my son Gary is 40 years old. A 40-year-old in 1989, I could insure his whole family for $230.
Wow.
And now he's paying 1750, and he's got to
Yeah.
pay the first $1,000 deductible.
Wow.
and when you go through when you go through the health, like this guy, and again, I don't know, like David, I don't know as much as maybe someone else would know about the subject or even read his manifesto. But when you go through the medical system and you're let
Oh,
down by these doctors and you're let down, my mom, I feel like I got sold by this dude wanted to put a pacemaker in my mom. And he was like, oh, your mom's going to be up and dancing. And like in the moment when you're vulnerable and you kind of like are looking for the help, you kind of wish that these are truths that are going to be real. And like,
Yep.
you're,
that ain't
but
the
then
truth they getting
after you're like real, I'm like, this dude actually was just a playboy. He was selling us, and like,
you.
and 2 months after he put the pacemaker in my mom passed. And it was like, even when they put it in, it didn't seem right. Like, just none of it felt right after it was done. And
But
like,
it's about profit now. It's not about taking care of people.
Yeah,
They'll
exactly.
put, check this out. United Healthcare, there was a lady on YouTube. She said they approved my mom for this surgery, but they wouldn't pay for the the anesthesiologist.
The anesthesia.
Now, who in
That's
the hell is going to go through somebody cutting on them with no
yeah,
anesthesia?
gonna get a bottle of Jack Daniels maybe first.
So
Right.
I didn't turn it down. Technically, they didn't turn it down.
They approved
But
it.
who's going to go say, okay, doctor, they only pay for the surgery, start cutting on me with no pain medication? Ain't
crazy.
happening.
Or no help afterwards or
It's
any of that
really
stuff.
unfair. And they stole, United Healthcare stole they're the worst company. That's what he was trying to bring to light. He
Yeah.
he shared. If he wouldn't have done what he did, it wouldn't have brought the light so bright.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard. Or if
Mm-hmm.
it did, it wouldn't be the same way, and he might be gone, like I said. And it's a tough one. It's
It
like
is.
how many people indirectly has that company killed itself, right?
Yep.
That's what they're trying to tell. If you look at how many people have been coming up, ex-employees are talking, what a horrible company. I mean, they're talking so bad about that company.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. Like just like war or anything else, it's like we really don't wish any of this upon anybody, you know. So yeah,
Can I ask? Huh?
yeah.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Can I ask you guys a question? Does the greed not scare you? And it's not just United Healthcare.
Well, the greed
Does
scares
the
me for sure.
Yep.
because as an older gentleman, it scares me how greedy America is.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's a problem.
Don't you see it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's awful.
it's in a lot of things.
yeah. Like
It's
I'm
in
in sales.
everything.
Yeah,
I'm in sales, so it's like in order for me to do my job, I got to sell something. I got to make money. I got to charge this. I know where it's coming from, and I've been charged myself. And the idea is everyone should have to make money. Like everybody should make money. You know what I mean? But it's to the point where certain people are making so much more and they got plenty extra to spare. And they're living lives of luxury where other people are just starving and other
yeah,
things.
When
So
you
Yep.
it's
become a third world, they never had this many people homeless in the 70s. Never.
yeah,
And they want to. They talk about there's a lot of money out there, but a lot of these jobs they want to pay these people 15 or 20 bucks, with the average rent in the United States $1,200 to $1,400.
yeah.
The math don't math.
It does.
Yep.
don't add up.
My
Don't
my,
add up.
my son, Tyler, was working at a dealership selling 40 cars a month, and he made. I'm gonna tell you the numbers. He made like $18,000. In my career, in the 70s and the 80s, I've sold 35 cars probably maybe 20 times. You know what I made on 35 cars?
A lot.
About $40,000.
Wow, it's a big
Wow.
difference.
Think about that. In 80, I was a salesman. I went from a salesman to an owner of a dealership. Never managed anything. I walked into Ford Motor Company and he says, well, we don't give you a chance unless you have management experience. And I said, well, I don't have management experience, but I got my W-2s for the last 3 years. And I pulled them out and they said, they pay you that much to sell cars? And I said, well, I'm the best though. So I get in the dealership. I don't know nothing about managing the store. The guy, DM Coleman, called me and said, Phil, we gave you a chance because we saw your W-2s. We figured if nothing else, you'll go out there and
And
you
sell
might.
some.
He called me and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to learn how to read these paperwork. He said, we didn't give you no effing chance because we thought you didn't know how to read the paperwork. We thought you'd go out there and just sell it. Boatload of cars. He says, here's the deal. You go out there and do what you know how to do. And I'll send somebody up there to read you those goddamn statements. Go to work. I took it literally. And I called all my managers in and I said, hey, the best salesman in this store is me. Nobody walks until the boss talks.
That's it.
And the people would come in there and they'd be getting ready to leave, and the boss, they'd come in, hey, boss, this is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They're getting ready to leave. And I go, hey, I'm the owner. Why are you leaving without my car? And because I was the owner and people would respect authority, they would tell me what they wouldn't tell the salesman. They said, well, if you'd have gave me $11,000 for the car, I probably would have bought it. I said, so let me get this straight. I give you $11,000, we got to do. They go, I ain't looked at the appraisal, nothing, because I'm gonna put whatever the loss is or whatever it is, I'm gonna put it to advertising because I'm trying to make my name. So I go shake it. You got a deal. So I'm in a city that's 99% white. So the word got around, hey, if you want to deal, go see that big black guy down there in Red Bluff. Because you know. So I told everybody they're going to pretend like they know me. And they might have only saw me at a grocery store. You introduce them like they're my best friend. And I played that off to the hill. This store was so small, it had never made over 300,000. My first year, I made $1.2 million. Second year, I made about $1.8 million.
Wow.
The number one Ford dealer in the world, his name is Bert Boxman. He died last year, I think. But for 50 years, he was number one. And I'm sitting next to him in a meeting. He says, you know what I do every day, all day, Phil? I said, what, Mr. Boxman? He said, well, I sold a Japanese guy a car last night. I sold him his first car 40 years ago. I said, Mr. Bachman, you run the largest dealership, Galpin Ford in Sepulveda. It's the number one Ford dealer in the world. He says, yeah. He said, Phil, I can hire people to read paperwork and do all that, but for some ungodly reason, people like to say they know the owner. I didn't know I was doing it right, but I was following Bert Bachman's lead, and I didn't even know it.
Hey, at least you were selling cars that worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have you're the owner. You didn't have the United scare of
but it's what is sad is we don't take care of our own. There should be nobody homeless. How do people sleep? I can't imagine if I had Elon Musk's money and I'm worth $250 billion, and I drive to LA and I see people on the streets. He must have no heart.
Build housing. There's so many solutions. There's so
Yeah.
much.
Oh, come on, man.
There's so many
There's
solutions.
no reason nobody in America. That's what third world countries did. When I went to Brazil and places like that, I saw that. I didn't see that in the United States of America. Come on now. When I went to Brazil, I saw that. I saw it in Mexico. I saw it in. You can see that in America. Come on.
We shouldn't. And boys, it's about that time.
Let's call it quits. Yes.
It's about that time.
But I tell you what, I like the idea of the questions because I think we put a lot of knowledge out there in the air.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah,
Keep it going.
I'm glad to get the advice from you guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, we got to get
Let's
you back
do
on.
it again.
We
Hell
appreciate
yeah.
it.
Good night.
I'd love to.
So
Good
yeah,
night, everybody.
definitely.
All right, good night, guys.
All right. Good night.
Boys, have a good night and a better tomorrow. Thank you for
All
joining
right.
me.